So I'm always looking into US biotechs. That's my world right now because I feel like there's a lot of volatility there and mispricing and such. So the first thing is I have a major position in Summit, 50% of my portfolio, and it is in at 17. They did an offering a while ago. It's dropped down to it was 13 for a while. It's 14. Now it's around like, let's say 15 right now. But, you know, obviously if I would have known, they would have did that little mess up where some guy announced the offering and then, Doug and was like, oh, whoa, 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 we don't want to do the offering and now the timing is terrible. Um, so that little hiccup that cost the stock price, cost a billion of, roughly in the market cap. I wish I would have seen that coming, but of course, it's tough to see those kind of mistakes. It was already pretty low, and that's why I got in at 17 because I didn't want to miss out. Just 2 months ago, the stock was at in the high 20s. So this is a very volatile stock. So not too worried, but bummer on that. It would have been nice to get in a better price at 13, but I'm still happy and sitting pretty. Still prediction target of 40 plus with the FDA approval, which is likely in November. If not November, then it'll be next year.
By the way, we'll do
So
another
yeah,
update. Sorry to interrupt. We'll do another update probably on that in a few months because I also do own the stock before November. So don't worry. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, obviously I own a lot, and my yeah, other accounts that I know about own a lot as well. So yeah, very still mispriced by the market in my opinion. So even AI, even the AI, if you just type in what's the probability of a stock that's already approved in another country, already being used, it's like goes into like the 80, 90%. This is like it's just paperwork basically. The FDA we already have we already know water makes things wet. It just you need to prove it to the FDA.
Mhm.
It's like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So the physical facts are there. It's just sort of a matter of time, money, effort, and paperwork. So not too worried there. Very high probability thing, and the market's still pricing in, you know, that it's not going to be successful, at least not commercially. This guy is hiring like a maniac. I mean, this company was down to like 30 people a couple years ago. Now it's up to like 300 plus. I wouldn't be surprised if it's at 400 now because he's just these lists of positions he's hiring, and he's making it a big biotech. He's putting money where his mouth is. So yeah, still excited about that. Just last week, actually, I came across a biotech, Alzamed Neuro, which sounds like a microcap penny stock on the Turkish
Sounds
stock
like a plant.
exchange.
Sounds like a planet from Alpha Centauri.
That too. His name is so sketchy, right? Anyways, this company was a total turd, and I like the idea of sort of being hedged, having some positions I'm short, some positions I'm long. Um, and obviously, with short positions, you have the downside of some crazy short squeeze or a market mania or whatever. So at least the way I think about it in terms of risk management, you always want your shorts to be a very small percent of your portfolio. But if there's money to be made, in this case, this thing is trading is worthless. It's not worth anything, and it's trading with like a $30 million market cap or something like that. So I shorted a small position there. You're certainly welcome to ask me questions at the end here. And then CalSematica, which we did a video on. CalSematica. They actually, I was super not really excited with them because of the way management handled this whole, where the safety, data safety monitoring board, they basically pulled a trial and at an early stage biotech, you look at the probability of that getting FDA approval and the odds just go down. They didn't say anything. I'm assuming this is for fear of lawsuits or anything. They just kind of just were silent. It's like, yeah, the data safety manager, and then everything's good. And we're like, and of course, all the investors are like, everything's good. How can everything good if you pulled the trial, canceled the trial? It's like obviously something's going on, but they won't say. So the stock obviously plummeted with that. Investors thinking, okay, this thing is gonna be zero soon.
Hold on a
But
second.
then they just
Before you go,
sure.
when you say plummeted, can you say like what the prices were? Because it plummeted quite a bit.
Yes, exactly. It was in the $5 range and it went down on sub a dollar in the 50 cents to 80 cents range,
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
which is where when I bought. So I bought my average price, I think is 85 cents or something like that.
Mm.
So now I was expecting management to handle that a little bit better. They do have an interesting mechanism of action. There's some plus sides to the management's buying stock. There's definitely some plus sides to it. But the way they handled that fiasco, I guess you could say, was quite unimpressive. Um, they've been probably taking too long, I would say. They've been working on this for like 10 years plus, and really hasn't made as much progress as I would think of. Their salaries are a little inflated, so I feel like and their office is actually right on the beach. So I feel like they're kind of more interested in continuing their lifestyle than they are in getting something like FDA approved and done. Like it's
Not to
just
put you on the spot,
my
but
suspicion.
not to put you on the spot, but what was average salary like? What 400,000, 500,000 for the CEO or
It's
whatever?
higher. It's like in
Oh, higher. Okay,
under a million. Yeah, like in this like 600 to 900,000 range.
okay, go ahead.
And this is something that the company's been doing this for like 10 years before they were a private company. You can't see the salary data, but they were presumably slightly lower, but similar range. And then that's the estimate based off of other scenarios where the biotech goes from public to private or private to public. Um, Anyways, so just really like not a lot of fire under the butt, in my opinion, after that. So I was looking for an exit, and having learned from Chris with his exit on Galt, where he sort of very patiently waited for some good news in stock and got out doubling, as opposed to me, who got out with a 50% loss. I'm like, that's a very good idea. Chris is a little smarter than me, in my opinion. So I was like, I may not be the smartest guy, but I do know how to learn from other people. So I've been holding that stock, waiting for some nice move. It had a nice move recently. It broke a dollar. They got $49 million private placement. So clearly, someone with a bunch of money thinks that they're still have a chance of getting somewhere. So the
So are
stock
you
has
still
been.
in the are you still in the stock, or are you still
Yeah,
waiting
still
for
on
it
the
to go?
stock. Like I said earlier, I'm waiting for a nice rally, so to speak, to get out of the stock at a win.
And what's the price target for you getting out?
It would be like dollar. I have $1 calls on it, so it's gonna be called away on the third Friday of July. You know what? I'm in at 80 something cents, 80 2, 83, 84, somewhere around there. I sold the calls for like 8 cents a share. So I'm out at like, and this is a very small percent of my portfolio, but I'm out at like, a 25% gain with a 6 month hold, something like that. So it's not terrible, but it's a small position. It doesn't really move the needle.
No, I got you. I got you. No, no, it's
Yeah.
smart. It's smart to keep it because I wasn't sure what it was going to do, but I mean, hey, good on you because anyway, yeah, I might as well reflect on it. I think it was good that you held it and you held your conviction that it still had potential to do something, right? Because all it took was one piece of good news, which I don't know if you were predicting that good news. I don't know if anybody really was,
I
but
wasn't predicting it, but I was expecting the market to basically say like, oh, we were like overcorrecting. Like it was too low. There's still like it was my expectation. I didn't know that it was going to be a private placement was going to basically restore the confidence. I mean, this could literally go back to $5 and well, not $5, but if the market's pricing $5 without the safety, the data safety monitoring information pulling it out, I would say like half, like 250. I could see that in the cards.
mhm.
Not that I'm going to get 250 now. I'm going to get a call that at one most likely. But
Okay,
yeah.
okay, fair enough. Anything else update?
Um, no, that's it.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So what I am going to talk about, actually, one thing I forgot about to talk about?
But
We didn't finish about data centers last week.
oh,
Did
we
you
didn't.
want to
Oh,
kind
okay.
of talk a
We're talking
little
about
bit about?
space and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
want
The
to talk
thing is,
about?
I want to touch. You know what? Since I promised my audience, we'll talk about. Let's talk about the betting markets first, and then if we have enough time,
Yeah, that's pretty critical. Data
yeah,
centers
yeah,
also. But
yeah. Data centers kind of okay. So let's rewind the clock back to about 2.5 years ago. Dill and I used to have discussions like this that were obviously private on the telephone. And we would always say, I guess, first politically, like, who do you think's going to win? Why do you think's going to win on this? And we always had the two things, polls and betting markets, right? So I was
yeah,
always
you're the
like,
main one that introduced that. Honestly, that's what I remember that you introducing that.
yes, absolutely. I did. Thank you for doing it. So I said, Dylan, everybody on the media always talks about polls. Okay, yeah. Polls are important, obviously. But a lot of the way that the polls are made are old traditional ways, over the telephone. People lie, you know what I mean? So there's sometimes uh, inaccuracies. In fact, lots of times inaccuracies. Talk about the inaccuracies in 2016, where the election clearly looked for
Hillary and
everybody,
then Trump winning and all that.
and then Trump winning, and then everybody said, "Oh, the polls were wrong," and then they moved on from that. See, me, I've got a really good memory, Dylan. we have really good memories. So I said, okay, well, 2 or 3 days after the election, you say the polls are wrong. And then now in the midterms in 2018, you're talking about polls. Well, wait a minute here. 2 years ago, you said
2 years
they're
ago they were wrong. How do we know
yeah,
they're going to be
yeah.
right
Well,
now?
how am I going to believe this? So I said, okay, well, I was scratching my head thinking, okay, there's got to be another predictive source, right? So that comes down to betting markets, which have actually been around for really hundreds of years. And essentially, it's kind of putting your money where your mouth is on specific, very important subjects. So now you can bet on almost anything, right? You can probably bet on whether or not the Cleveland Cavaliers win the championship next year. Okay, I'm a sports guy, maybe Dylan not so much, but we're not going to talk about that on this channel. You know, this channel we're talking about things that will affect ourselves in the market. So I figured, okay, well, elections do figure out the market. So let's look at how the elections, because obviously Republicans tend to do more tax cuts. You know what I mean? And both parties like very very low interest rates. So we can have a predictive measure, pardon me, on the political spectrum, but also, which I think is probably even more important to this channel, is you can also have predictive measures on interest rates, because normally lower interest rates are catalyst to better market conditions. Normally, not always, but normally. So that's when Dylan and I used to always get into our arguments and say, well, let's look at the betting markets and see where it goes. And Dylan may have one way, might have the other, or we may have the same way, same idea, pardon me, same idea in our head, but the betting markets could be different. The betting markets could be with us. So, give you a perfect example. We talked about a few podcasts ago about there was certain catalysts coming up in the market. Catalyst meaning like Trump was going to do the big tax cuts, the big beautiful bill, and interest rates were expected to be cut, right? They weren't, and things of that nature. And tariffs were going to bring jobs back. We figured that that was all going to be. This was last year, by the way. That was all going to be kind of a boon for the market this year. Okay, well, things do change. Iran war happened. Nobody really predicted that, not even the predictive market. That kind of just happened, right? But there are also predictive measures on when it would end, you know? And a lot of the predictive measures said it would end, which I guess hasn't ended right now, kind of, sort of. I don't know. We don't really know. You
Halfway
know,
ended.
yeah, has it ended? Like, we don't kind of sort of don't know, and you kind of don't know till I guess you got to wait a few months till the dust settles. But these predictive markets are kind of showing us how these things are. So anyway, long story short is that we use predictive markets to potentially look at catalyst events, interest rates, and political. Midterms are coming up, which we will have podcasts on, and political midterms, and seeing how that affects the market. Traditionally, right? We want to put out. They're not always right, obviously, right? We don't use them as complete gospel. We use them as Dylan has an opinion, I have an opinion, the betting market has an opinion, right? And their opinion is like a whole separate entity, which we both have as credibility because their money is on the line. Sorry, Dylan, I've been doing a lot of talking. Does anything you have any questions with this, or any disagreements, comments, concerns?
Yeah, no, I just want to add that because even like if I discuss with someone at work, I'm like, hey, who do you think be president or, whatever it is, and they'll be like, yeah, for sure, Jim Jones be president. I'll be like, oh, are you willing to bet money on that? And they're like, well, no, like so. It's very common for people to say like, oh, I guarantee that Jim will return the tool he borrowed, and we're like, oh, cool. Why don't you pay me $1,000 if he does it? And they're like, well, I'm not like completely confident. And you're like, well, you just said that, so what changed? What changed now is money's on the line. So people are sloppy with their language, as I would describe, heavily exaggerate and stuff like that. And I've never been a big fan of that. But it's very common. So the putting money at risk tends to make people a little bit more clear-eyed and careful about what their opinions are and how they're expressing that when there's money to be lost on it. So it's a good filter, a good bullshit filter. So
Yeah, and certainly here's another thing I do want to mention. one of the first things on this podcast, which I don't think that the media or anybody else or Dylan or anybody else is really mentioning. I think it's really important. Is what I like doing is I like, let's assume, because there are different betting sites, right? Kalshi, Polymarket, others. Um, Taking an average of multiple reputable paying betting sites, right? And then taking an average of those on a particular subject, and then kind of getting the mean of, or the average of that particular subject. I like doing that because you could theoretically have a big bettor who wants to put big money and could sway that bet some way, right? Could a little bit.
Yeah.
So there is that. I mean, so it's not a perfect. Let me reel this in a little bit. It's not a perfect system. Nothing really is, but it is another tool to kind of look at that. So why do we bring this up on this podcast? We're bringing this up on this podcast, or we're both bringing this up on the podcast, is because you will overhear us in the past and in the future saying, "Well, what do the betting markets say on it?" Et cetera. So, for example, like interest rates right now, it's looking like they're probably going to hold steady for the next year. That's not, but you got to be a little bit careful with these betting markets. And I do want to bring this up because I just did a little bit of research before doing this podcast. Is that it becomes more predictive as you are closer to the date, particularly weeks, etc. And weeks is best. Months, you're kind of getting a snapshot. Anything 6 months after, I mean, it's almost a guess. So I want to say that. So anything that's 6 months from now, what is Dylan? It's like November ish. No, December. Yeah, November, December ish, right?
Yeah, December because July
You
now. Yeah.
you don't want to predict out next year. You want to predict into this upcoming year, whatever it may be. And the closer you are to the I guess main event horizon, whatever you want to call it, is the more accurate the betting markets will be. So, for example, you got the midterms coming up in November. You're going to get a good snapshot of who's going to win, but it's not like, I wouldn't take it as gospel just yet. But it is um, a nice kind of lens to look at for right now, and a lens that we have both agreed on that is something. Now, what betting market do we normally look at? I mean, normally we look at Kalshi and Polymarket are our favorites, right? Normally, or
Yes.
whatever. We normally choose Polymarket just because they're the biggest, they're Americanized, they're most reputable. So that's what we look at. I mean, I'm not assuming somebody has another betting market they want to look at. I'm going to look at that too, and then look at the spreads between the two, and then we go from there. So we think it's a great tool. Not it's a great tool to get a second or third opinion on things.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna be 100% accurate, just like stock prices aren't 100% accurate, but they're gonna give you a pretty good idea. And I'd be happy to make money if I could see something that's like if the betting market was like, there's a 50% chance the sun's not gonna come up tomorrow. Like, sure, I'll bet money on that. Like, I'm sure I'll bet on the
Yeah,
sun
go
coming.
the other way. Yeah, go the other way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I've never seen anything where with the data that's publicly available, you can literally be like, oh my God, there's some money to be made. Like in the stock market, for at least for me, I see it a lot more often in the stock market, but I don't see like, the Republicans are gonna win the House and Senate in this midterms. I don't see that in the betting markets, which I'm predicting that I'm thinking more likely, historically speaking, all that the Democrats will win the House and the Senate and all that sort of stuff. So, but I see that in the betting market. So I have yet to find any. I might disagree with their percentage slightly. Like maybe they think that the Democrats have a 75%. I would say more like 80% right now. But we'll see how Trump. Trump is very unpopular right now with the Iran war. So he has 4 or 5 months to fix things up. So it kind of depends on that. If he makes he does do loo, then maybe it gets a lot tighter, and then they have like a 55% chance. But as of right now, I might be more like 75 and the betting market say 80, or I might be like 5% off, but I never see any huge discrepancy that makes me want to put money into there. So they're fairly accurate in my opinion.
Yep, and with my like last minute and a half, I guess I'll kind of put a bow on this. Is that it has been a more accurate predictor than polls for sure. If you want to look at polls, etc. So I would almost throw polls. I mean, I'm sorry, but I mean, like, if you, I will trust the betting markets a lot more on any polls in any different way. I don't know how you feel, Dylan, but I will feel I'd much more trust.
Yeah, I think the polls are for stupid people, for lack of a nicer way of saying that. Like there's so many games that can be played with polls that it's like mainstream media talking about like the vaccine's safe and effective. It's like this is just the words they were told to read. Like it doesn't mean anything. Polls are the same way. It's kind of irrelevant. I mean, it's not completely irrelevant, but fairly irrelevant in terms of like knowing where people stand on something. I personally just like to walk around and ask people, real people on the street, what they think, coworkers, whatever. And I feel like that could be a pretty good gauge on it because that's a lot more accurate, smaller sample size, but all the games they play on polls and social media and bots and all sorts of stuff that, I like to filter out the bullshit with just going to a real person that I know. And that's like my polls. I do my own polls.
No, for sure, for sure. I definitely agree with you. And with the little few seconds we have left, we will talk next week about other stocks, etc. We may do a top five or top 10 or top portfolio kind of